Hello. I'm testing out a new camera. Okay, where to begin saying goodbye to my 20s? When I look back at the last 10 years of my life, it's hard to comprehend everything that has happened. There were so many chapters, so many lessons, so many people who have come and gone. And to be completely honest, there was a lengthy period in my 20s when I honestly believed I wouldn't make it out alive. And there's so many ways that I could dissect and reflect on this pivotal decade of my life. And I think being in your 20s, for anybody, it is a pivotal decade. It's a time in life when you're learning how to navigate the real world. You're coming out of school, becoming a young adult, trying to figure out who you are and what you stand for. And in a way, it's kind of like building the foundations of what you want the rest of your adult life to be. The world is pretty much up for grabs. The question is, what do you want to grab? And that was definitely the case for me. So when I look back at my 20s, I think, how do I even sum it up? Where do I even begin to reflect? Like, it's just been such a clusterfuck of experiences, of love and heartbreak, of self-doubt and achievements, of adventure and mental breakdowns. And maybe all of that isn't just limited to your 20s. Maybe life in itself is a huge clusterfuck of experiences. But I guess the difference is that in your 20s, you're still trying to figure out who you are, and everything is new, and essentially you're still growing up. And so as I approach my 30th birthday, I really just wanted to reflect on some of the pivotal clusterfuck experiences of my 20s, the experiences that I think have made me who I am today and taught me so many lessons that I will take with me into my 30s, into the new decade. Oh my gosh, I'm old. Okay, so it is impossible for me to reflect on my 20s and not think about Matthias and my long distance relationship, because it was 5 years of my life, pretty much half the decade. And obviously it had a very big impact during and after. And, it's what really helped build momentum for my YouTube channel. It's how a lot of people found me because, our love story was in the media, and I had a lot of hopes and dreams that were tightly linked to Matthias because it involved moving to Sweden and potentially creating a whole new life there and essentially creating a life with him. But in saying that, I was still very young and very emotionally immature. And I still hadn't figured out, who is Leonie? Who is Leonie when she is not attached to somebody else? During that time in my life, I had essentially created my whole identity around my relationship with Matthias. And so, of course, when that ended, I was not emotionally equipped to deal with this existential crisis that had befallen me. And now that I'm reflecting back on it, at the time, it really fucking sucked. And I did not think that I would survive the whole thing, but here I am. I guess another pivotal experience that I wanted to share was that after my relationship ended, I quickly found myself in another relationship which probably lasted way longer than it should have. And again, I am going to tie this back to the fact that I still hadn't figured out who I was as a person. I didn't know how to validate my existence without being attached to somebody else. And that was really bad because this new relationship was wrong and toxic on so many levels. We didn't have the same values. I ended up financially supporting him and his dad at times. And I think we were just two emotionally immature young adults just heading nowhere, which towards the end really frustrated me because I wanted more from my life. Having had dreams and hopes of moving to Sweden and having had traveled the world to now being stuck in a room with somebody who didn't have similar aspirations and goals and was just living day by day. And I was afraid to let go because, again, a lot of my identity was really just linked with the idea of being attached to somebody else. And who am I without a relationship to define me? But eventually I did let go, and I'm so glad that I did. And an influential factor that actually helped me to let go was BTS. And it's so strange to say that, and I know some people probably might not understand, but I think it was essentially the realization that 7 Korean boys who didn't even know of my existence could spark inspiration and motivation within me, and gave me an excitement to live in a way that, nobody else at that time could make me feel. So during this new breakup, I really spent a lot of time focusing on myself, finally taking time to figure out who is Leonie outside of a relationship. What is it that I really want? How do I understand myself better? My triggers and my emotional responses. And so towards the end of my 20s, as I got back into the dating scene and was on all the dating apps, I had a clearer idea of who I was as a person, and I approached dating with the mindset that I wanted to get to meet lots of different people and go in with an open mind to figure out what I did and didn't like and what I was and wasn't willing to compromise. That being said, it was all a learning experience, and sometimes it didn't go smoothly, and I could seriously write a whole novel about my Tinder and dating experience. But yeah, I think establishing an identity and my individuality outside of a romantic relationship really helped with the whole process. And I can say that I am quite happy with where I'm at right now. That's not to say that I still don't have my emotional triggers and attachment issues, but I guess the difference is that I am more self-aware and continuously working to validate myself outside of a relationship. And so in a really compressed nutshell, that sums up my love life in the 20s. Let's move on. In terms of my career, I feel like I'm quite lucky because I knew early on that I wanted to be working in the creative industry. I liked creating content, and I think that's pretty evident because I was obviously creating a lot of YouTube content on the side as well as blog posts. But coming out of university, I did have a bit of a career crisis after landing my first full-time corporate job. And I remember I would literally go to work every day, head straight to the bathroom, start crying and dry heaving because I was that anxious and I had such crazy imposter syndrome. And after about a year struggling there, I quit. And on reflection, it wasn't that the job was bad, but I was just young and not equipped again to deal with all the emotions and insecurities that I was feeling. And yeah, honestly, I think a lot of the issues that I had in my 20s just came down to the fact that I had no resilience. I had no control over my emotions, and I was dealing with every single situation with an emotional and reactive mind. So I had a career crisis, and I spent a year without a proper job. I was just doing some freelance work on the side and making subpar YouTube videos, and this was about the time that Matthias and I also broke up. So a lot of my content was about the relationship and about Swedish culture. So my channel actually took a really big nosedive as well. And to be completely honest with you guys, I know that my YouTube channel hasn't 100% recovered in the way that I would have liked it to. The momentum was gone and I took a break from making regular YouTube videos. But what I am super grateful for is that at the time I found what I called my dream job, which was a content producer for a not-for-profit organization. And I've been there for over 5 years now. And throughout those 5 years, it was just a roller coaster of emotions because on one hand, I really loved my job, but on the other hand, my personal life was falling apart. And there were so many times I would be at work and it would be such a nice distraction. But once work finished for the day and I made my way to the train station, I would be thinking about laying on the footpath and crying. And I would be like fighting back tears while on the train ride home. But I think something that I've always prided myself on is that I'm very task oriented and I like getting things done, and I'm not a last minute kind of person. But on the flip side of that, I don't think I have a lot of interpersonal skills. So that was something that I had to learn, and I'm still learning. So in my late 20s, I was given a lot more leadership opportunities, and I think right now I'm just coming to terms with the fact that it's okay to be different to what people conventionally think is a leader. You don't have to be extroverted, but I think the key is having confidence and at the end of the day, delivering a successful outcome. And I'm not gonna lie, it's been very challenging, and there have been moments where I feel like I just want to quit and have a complete career change. But I think it's also teaching me a lot about myself, and there's still so much more to learn. Another thing that I wanted to touch on that has been pivotal for me in my 20s is, of course, my YouTube channel. There have been so many times when I wanted to give it all up, and I don't know, I think this idea of trying to chase success and prove that I can become successful doing my own content, it has been a very contentious issue for me and has caused me quite a bit of stress over the last couple of years, especially when I look at my YouTube channel and see that it has stagnated. That's just a matter of the fact. And just coming to terms with the fact that this is probably something that I shouldn't pursue seriously and on a professional level, because it is so hard to hustle when a lot of my energy is being spent on my 9-to-5 job and just trying to balance my personal life as well. And I think it's just been trying to come to the terms with the fact that I don't need validation from numbers to know that what I produce is good or worthy. Because at the end of the day, I think for me, making videos and creating content has always been an expressive and creative and emotional outlet. And I don't think I could ever stop. Like, I really do enjoy making videos and documenting life, you know? But I think it really is just about like setting realistic expectations and doing it for the love of doing it rather than trying to chase numbers and meet a deadline. And yeah, again, I think it always comes down to the same lesson, but I think it just comes down to validating myself and my work. But yeah, I guess that sums up my career in the past 10 years. But if there's one thing that I've definitely learned, it's that your work should be fulfilling, but it shouldn't be your whole life. Unless, of course, that's what you want it to be. All right, so I can't reflect on my 20s without discussing mental health, because the struggle with my mental health has marred so much of my life. And, you know, there were many times in the last decade when I wanted to die. Many times I tried to die. You know, my go-to relief and coping mechanism was cutting myself and hurting myself. I tried antidepressants. I saw so many psychologists and went to group therapy sessions. There were a couple of trips to the hospital emergency department, police breaking down my bathroom door, a stint at the psych ward. So yeah, mental health has been a big thing in my life and was a big thing in my 20s. I learned a lot about borderline personality disorder, about how this disorder makes it hard for me to regulate my emotions, which in turn causes so much chaos in my relationships. It was such a long process to get to a point where I didn't want to die anymore, and where I felt like I could be in better control of my emotions. Again, I might owe a lot of that to BTS, because I feel like that was a pivotal moment in my life when I discovered them, because it sparked so much like, blah, like, oh my god, Leonie, all you have to do is love yourself. But I also do owe a lot to my friends and family who stuck by me during my crazy depressive, chaotic, emotional episodes. There were quite a few, and I feel very bad that I make all my friends and family worried about me. But yeah, you know, like my sisters, Rachel, my brother, my mom, and also random internet strangers who have followed me on my journey to try to figure out how to navigate life. There are people on the internet who have probably known me for the past 10 years and have seen the ebbs and flows of life. And I always find it kind of insane that someone from another country, someone who I've never met in person, could find inspiration or at least a sense of comfort and solace through the videos that I make. Through the videos where I talk about my issues or just document random things in my life. And I think it's just made me realize that even though it feels like it at times, we aren't alone. We are not alone. Our experiences are meant to be shared to help and guide others who are going through similar things. We all have our own journey and our own story. And the 20s for me was really just a period of growing up, learning how to find emotional maturity, figuring out who I am, making mistakes and overcoming monumental challenges. There are heaps of things that I regret doing in my 20s, but now that I'm here and have the ability to reflect, I don't think I would change anything. I'm glad things happened the way they did because it taught me a lot, and I think I am in a happier place because of it. But that's not to say that I don't have my moments still, and I'm sure there's going to be plenty more challenges in the decades to come, potentially more heartache, potentially more mental breakdowns, but I've made it this far and I never thought I would. So I'm happy to close this chapter of my life and start writing the next one. Thank you for coming along this journey. That's it. That's the end. I mean, that's not the end. It's just the end of the chapter. Okay. I don't know how to end the video, but those were just my thoughts. Thank you for listening, and I will see you guys in my next video, whatever that may be.